Alright, so my book was Ain't I a Woman? Black Women and Feminism by Bell Hooks. My name's Austin, by the way. Austin Evans. I'm sorry. But this was a really interesting experience, I guess, because I'm not black or a woman. So, but anyways. So this is Bell Hooks. She was born Gloria Jean Watkins on September 25th, 1952 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Hopkinsville, Kentucky was extremely racially segregated whenever she was growing up. I guess I should say her name is lowercase. As you can say, the book title and everything was lowercase too, because she said that she wanted the substance of her writing to be emphasized, not who she was and what the name of the book was. But she began her first book, which was Ain't I a Woman, at the age of 19, and it was published in 1981. She graduated from Stanford University with a bachelor's degree in 1973, from the University of Wisconsin with a master's degree in 1976, and the University of California, Santa Cruz with a PhD in English in 1987. And she works at Berea College in the English department right now. So, struggles of African American women in the fight for equality. African American women were treated poorly in a patriarchal society in the past. That's what Bell Hooks was talking about, basically the whole, all the way through the book. She started the book actually during slavery, and she gave really graphic, I guess, explanations of sexual exploitations and torture and stuff like that, which was really, I hadn't heard any of that stuff, so that was pretty eye-opening, I guess. And African American women were seen as inferior to white women. The hierarchy that she describes of sex and race were white men at the top, black men and white women kind of second together, depending on race or sex, whichever one you're talking about, and then black females always at the bottom, no matter what. During the women's rights movement and the civil rights movement, African American women were in a bad position. She talks about this for basically a whole chapter, because basically she was saying that the white women were looked down on the black women because they were seen, because of the sexual exploitation and stuff like that, they were seen as sexually deviant and impure all the way after slavery for the next long time. But they looked down on them and didn't want them to speak in public and stuff like that. So by supporting the women's rights movement, the African American women were basically supporting the beliefs that the white women had, and they didn't want to do that. But then, if they wanted to support the civil rights movement, that was aimed basically mainly towards black men. So they were supporting the patriarchal society that had given them so much trouble for so many years. And Hook states that the term woman is used to talk about white women, and the term black is used to talk about black men. So African American women are normally left out. So she also says that historians tend to leave out or to downplay the hardships of African American women throughout history. And I guess before I read this, I would have probably disagreed with that, I guess, because historians talk about everybody they're supposed to talk about. They don't get to pick and choose who they talk about, I guess. But then after reading all the stuff that she talked about, I realized that I haven't really ever heard about any of this stuff in any history classes or anything like that. So I guess what she's saying has some truth to it, for sure. And then equality for African American women. Bell Hooks uses Sojourner Truth a couple of times in her book. And the name, Sojourner Truth's famous speech was entitled Ain't I a Woman, which is also the title of Hooks' book. And she quotes the speech in the book. She used a whole paragraph and just basically let you read Sojourner Truth's speech. But the speech discusses the views men have on women, again referring only to white women. And then Truth continued to ask the question, Ain't I a woman? So I have a video, and it's obviously not Sojourner Truth speaking because that'd be pretty ridiculous, but it's another woman.
Here, the black abolitionist Sojourner Truth, who was herself freed from slavery in 1827, speaks to a gathering of feminists in Akron, Ohio in 1851.
Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North, all talking about rights, the white man will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages, lifted over ditches, and to have the best place everywhere. Huh. Nobody ever helps me into carriages, or over mud puddles, or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman?
And she basically just goes on like that as the speech continues. She just keeps comparing herself to white women and what the go back. So she basically just keeps comparing herself to white women and men's belief on white women. And so Hooks basically wrote, most of the beginning of the book was just background information about how they were treated badly, and then she bases a lot of the second half of the book on the speech. But, so how does this tie into education? Y'all are probably all thinking that because I asked myself that same question about 50 times probably. But her main goal is to empower African American women. And unlike, I know some of y'all's, people's contribution to education was like they built schools, or like they had ideas to better schools and stuff like that. But her contribution was just awareness. And she wants us as future educators to be aware that African American women have been historically overlooked so we can stop this from happening in the classroom. And there's a few ways we can do this, and one of the ways we can differentiate learning to help keep them interested, like read books by African American women and stuff like that. And then we can give them leadership roles in the classroom and stuff, and that'd be easy. For example, like Warner said he wants to coach women's basketball. You could give an African American female, like she could be the captain of the team or stuff like that. And then we could also just basically just show them we care and that we're there for them. We're here to help them succeed and stuff like that. So this graph it's the ACT graph, and it's about the percent of students that meet the college readiness benchmark scores on the ACT. And the green is other girls, and then the blue is African American girls. And as you can see, they're pretty far behind in every subject. But I believe that, like Hook said, it's because they might feel overlooked, and maybe we're not helping them like we should and stuff like that. So to help them, we need to teach them, we need to show them that they can succeed and they can be leaders. And to do this, we need to teach them about other African American female leaders like from the past. So how can I use this in my English classroom? I can assign nonfiction books about the history of African American women. This one in particular, Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, is an autobiography about Maya Angelou from the time she was a young woman until, like a young girl, until she turned 17. So for this, we could just look at characterization and stuff about how she was at the beginning of the book, and then how she was at the end, and then we have a class discussion on how she changes, or they can write a paper on how she changes and stuff like that throughout the story. And then I can assign books written by African American women. And this one, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, has a lot of southern dialect and stuff in it. So we could talk about how Zora Neale Hurston uses dialect to emphasize certain points in the story, or how she uses it to how the story would be different if it had different dialect and stuff like that. And then I can make a point to call on African American females in my classroom and say no, their ideas are as valuable as the rest of the class. And this is just basically not overlooking them, like Bell Hooks said, just making sure they know that they're a part of the class as much as everybody else is and stuff like that. And these are the standards I used. It's the NCTE standards. Number 2, students read a wide range of literature from many periods and many genres to build an understanding of the many dimensions of human experience. And then number 9, students develop an understanding of and respect for diversity in language use, patterns, and dialects across cultures, ethnic groups, geographic regions, and social roles. And then that's my resolution.